She's seductive, dangerous, and fiercely determined. The femme fatale, a timeless archetype from the film noir genre of the 1940s and 50s, continues to captivate audiences to this day. While some celebrate her as an emblem of female power, others criticize her for seemingly perpetuating negative stereotypes of women. But what happens when this classic archetype is given a postmodern spin? Enter Gone Girl and Amy Dunne, a new take on the femme fatale. In this video, I will dive into the complexities of Amy's character, look at her femme fatale origins, and explore this question: does Amy give women a bad rap as evil and hysteric? Or is she a step in the right direction for representing women in popular culture? The femme fatale, French for fatal woman, is typically a seductive, manipulative, and dangerous lady who actively pursues her own desires, which often involves talking men into doing illegal stuff for her. She originated in film noir of the 40s and 50s, but the idea of the deadly woman has been around since ancient times. Hello Hollywood, can we get a remake of Medusa as a femme fatale, please? Thank you. The femme fatale is a threat to the genre mold of a woman as a caring mother and wife, or a helpless damsel in distress, and to the idea of the woman as the angel in the house, aka the Victorian ideal of a woman as submissive, self-sacrificing, and domestic. And in film noir, she is often punished for destroying traditional norms with death or marriage. In the heyday of femme fatales in the 1940s, in films like Double Indemnity or The Postman Always Rings Twice, she might have been the sole figure fracturing male dominance in Hollywood narratives. But she was allowed to do so only very briefly for the spectator's fun before being disempowered. The femme fatale was a response to rising male anxieties around women entering the public sphere and stealing their jobs.
They took our jobs!
They took your job! They took your job! They took your job!
An important characteristic of the femme fatale is her duplicity, or the ability to mold herself into roles in order to deceive or manipulate men. Julie Grossman, a film scholar, writes, "Female characters branded as femme fatales perform roles in order to survive, to seduce, or to manipulate others in order to get what they want. Yet any pretense to better their position is received as immoral and invites male scorn."
You don't understand me, Johnny. You don't know me very well.
I know you like a book. You're a no-good, nosy little tramp. You'd sell out your own mother for a piece of fudge, but you're smart along with it. Smart enough to know when to sell and when to sit tight, and you know you better sit tight in this case.
I do.
You heard me. You like money. You got a great big dollar sign there where most women have a heart.
You like money. You like money.
The femme fatale has been loved and celebrated for being a female character with agency, compared to women being represented as victims or one-dimensional love interests of the male protagonist, but, as many of you probably know, also criticized. Does the femme fatale support the rethinking of gender norms by putting power into the hands of a female character, or is she just a tool to solidify a shaky post-World War II male identity? No matter how you see this issue, the femme fatale stands for an important moment in Hollywood cinema, during which women were written as active and intelligent characters who got power, not weakness, from their sexuality. Before I get deeper into analyzing Amy as a neo-femme fatale, I want to note that femme fatales can't really be reduced to a single category. As Julie Grossman writes, film noir's femme fatale is a phantom that, when viewers examine closely many noir films, they find so-called femme fatales to be three-dimensional women who have their own stories to tell. Their criminality is often a means of rejecting or rebelling against the constricting roles ascribed to or projected onto them. Gone Girl is most of all a story of unraveling hidden truths. In its first half, we are led to believe that this is going to be a classic crime story. A strained marriage, a cheating husband, missing wife, and a possible murder. Opening scenes set the tone for this. We see a deer in an abandoned pool, empty streets, closed down shops. Suburban life seems kind of eerie and scary. We feel like something bad is about to happen. And it does. Amy is missing, and her husband Nick immediately becomes the prime suspect. We learn about Amy's perspective of the events through her diary entries. The diary as a storytelling tool was used a lot in Gothic novels in order to create a feeling of intimacy and to get an insight into the secret thoughts of a character. Women in Gothic novels were often confined and oppressed, so the diary was a way for them to secretly share their suffering with the reader. In Gone Girl, Amy parodies the diary format by faking diary entries with the purpose of framing Nick for her murder. Her story of Nick being violent and using her is fabricated. Amy is not a suffering Gothic heroine, but calculated and empowered. She also uses fluffy, girly pens to write the diary, which she later ditches out the window, basically removing the mask of her as a sweet, suffering wife to reveal a powerful villain. And then she hits us with the famous cool girl speech.
Cool girl is hot. Cool girl is gay. Cool girl is fun. Cool girl never gets angry at her man.
Cool girl is femininity constructed to conform to male approval. She's an image, a patriarchal fantasy, if you want to put it in fancy terms. I really appreciated this speech because it felt like a uniquely female perspective, and it kind of struck at the core of the seeking male approval issue in a satirical and fun way. While classic noir films were written by men from the perspective of men, Gone Girl, although it was directed by David Fincher, also known for Fight Club, by the way, was a book adaptation with both the book and the screenplay written by Gillian Flynn. The biggest question after the cool girl speech, aka the big reveal, is why? What motivates Amy to go through all this meticulous planning and elaborate setup to frame her husband? Why didn't she just get a divorce? I mean, she owns Nick's bar anyways, so he would be financially ruined if she left him. Well, where's the fun in that?
Divorce.
Stop laughing.
Jokes aside, I think that this is precisely the main point of the film. Amy is a psycho killer. Calculated, manipulative, evil, and as such, enacts the suppressed fantasies of a woman that was betrayed and cheated on. Every piece of her elaborate plan falls into place like in a dream. Yet the film is also somehow realistic. Like, when you watch it, you think, wow, this could have actually happened. This dreamlike yet realistic story of revenge is supposed to indulge us. And claiming that Amy is a bad role model is completely missing the point of a female villain, in my opinion. Gone Girl got a lot of backlash for being misogynistic. Fincher has made a rattling cautionary tale about the dangers of a scorned woman, told with a definite cleverness but also a strong whiff of misogyny. Gone Girl is the perfect enactment of a brand of misogyny that has women's mind, as much as, or more than, their bodies in its sights. I can see why some people feel this way about the movie. Amy is evil, and it seems as if she paints a bad picture of women as hysteric, untrustworthy, and calculated. I also completely disagree with the idea that the film is misogynistic. Gillian Flynn, who wrote the novel and the screenplay, questions whether feminism is really only girl power and you go girl and empower yourself and be the best you can be. For me, it's also the ability to have women who are bad characters. The one thing that really frustrates me is this idea that women are innately good, innately nurturing. Amy, as a neo-femme fatale, enacts a collective fantasy of acting out. She's an outlet for frustration with patriarchal society. Piotrowska, a feminist film scholar, calls her violence a bold and risky reimagining of what female desire and agency might be. and what rage, fueled by male betrayal, might actually look like. It is a metaphor, not a self-help manual. So are women going to watch this movie and think that running around framing men is the right way to deal with marital problems and infidelity?
No!
Was it fun to see a female villain so evil and calculated as Amy? Hard yes in my book. Also, Amy is just one of the many female characters in the movie. Detective Boney and Go are much different depictions of femininity, with Detective Boney being assertive and suspicious of Amy throughout the film and completely dismissing the whole trial by media circus. Now I want to talk about a second main point of criticism of Amy as a female villain, and that is that she is superficial. On the surface level, Amy seems to equate success with admiration of the fancy upscale New York crowd and the perfect Nick and Amy brand.
You need a diary. Minimum 300 entries on the Nick and Amy story. Start with the fairy tale early days. Those are true, and they're crucial. You want Nick and Amy to be likable.
She is obviously attached to this image of them as the perfect couple, and when things start to go sideways, they lose their jobs, move to the Midwest, Nick starts cheating on her, she can't stand it and orchestrates a media trial to avenge the loss of that perfect image.
But Nick got lazy. He became someone I did not agree to marry. He actually expected me to love him unconditionally. You think I'd let him destroy me and end up happier than ever? No fucking way.
I do somewhat agree with this interpretation of her motivations, but I also think this analysis is kind of basic. The context of Amy's rage is much more complicated. Her parents made up the amazing Amy character and turned Amy into an image. Real Amy could never live up to the impossible standards and achievements of amazing Amy, because she is, well, an imperfect human being, not a cartoon character. But she came to see the world as a series of roles she needs to ascribe to. In his book Simulacra and Simulation, Jean Baudrillard came up with the concept of the hyperreal. He says, simulation is no longer that of a territory, a referential being, or a substance. It is the generation by models of a real without origins of reality, a hyperreal. So basically we're living in the Matrix, a simulation that is not only so real that we can't distinguish it from reality, but it has become more real than reality itself.
This isn't real. What is real?
So what does this French philosopher's idea of the hyperreal have to do with Gone Girl? Amy constructs her own hyperreal narrative based on information she gets from TV shows, books, and the media. She and Nick are the perfect couple. She's cool girl, then a victim and an expecting mother. She essentially molds herself into these roles constructed by the media and then uses that power to basically control reality. Amy's performance of her identity has become more real than her true self, which, if we look at it with Baudrillard's rather pessimistic outlook, doesn't even exist. The media holds the power to construct and shape public perception of Amy's disappearance and Nick's guilt, basically creating and sustaining what Baudrillard calls the hyperreal.
You need to package yourself so that people will truly mourn your loss. And America loves pregnant women.
Nick only gains power over his narrative when he realizes that he too needs to reduce himself to an image, aka a regretful cheating husband, in order to control public opinion.
This is a ticking time bomb. You've got to throw yourself on it.
People are gonna hate me.
And then they will forgive you. A guy admitting that he's a gigantic asshole on television, people empathize with that.
I want to note that Amy's ability to manipulate the media is a privilege. She's a white, upper middle class, attractive woman, and her parents paint her as a picture-perfect daughter, wife, and citizen. The predominant interest of the media to cover such missing person cases is mocked in Gone Girl. Amy's encounter with Greta, a real victim of domestic abuse and a woman with a far less privileged background, reveals the truth about Amy. She's successful in her elaborate scheme and media manipulation only because of her privileged status in society. Greta's story, like many others, is never told and remains an open secret. I feel like this was an interesting side comment in the film, especially when Amy gets frustrated with Greta and doesn't know how to confront her. but just like spits in her drink out of spite.
She seems uppity.
Interest in education and
Spoiled rich girl, married a cheating asshole, paid the ultimate price.
The only secret was her husband. You never met Nick. He never introduced himself.
Why was that, Noelle?
Finally, the biggest difference between Amy and the classic noir femme fatale is that Amy is not punished in the end. She triumphs in the end and gets what she wants, albeit in her own twisted way. Nick is locked in a position where he has no other option but to comply with her requests. Amy's rage is also more extreme than that of the classic noir femme fatale. And overall, I think that she was a good reimagining of what a femme fatale might look like in a postmodern world. The thing that troubled me most while watching Double Indemnity was that look, the facial expression of Phyllis, one of the most iconic femme fatales of noir. I wanted so bad for her to say something, to break that fourth wall, or somehow let us know what she's really thinking and feeling. Of course, I knew watching a movie from the 1940s that that is not going to happen. Amy in Gone Girl gives us more than that. She plays us and deceives us for a good 45 minutes before revealing a twisted truth. From the enigmatic facial expression of Phyllis to the calculated deception of Amy in Gone Girl, these films highlight the progression of female representation on the big screen, with a move towards more multidimensional and nuanced portrayals. Thank you for watching this video, and I warmly welcome your opinions on this in the comments. See you in the next one.